Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Elizabeth Gross, and I'm here to talk to you about what to do if you've been laid off. How many people here have ever been laid off? Okay. Okay. Well, me too. I actually work in the marketing and advertising industries, and as a result, those businesses, they have a lot of fluctuations in clients, in financials, in their business, and I have found myself between jobs 4 times. So what was interesting about that, every time I found myself using similar techniques to recover from my layoff and to set myself up to find my next job. And then I started sharing those techniques with people, and they found them to be really successful too. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. What I'm going to walk through today is how to prepare for a layoff, developing your own recovery strategy, and setting yourself up for a successful search to help you land your next job. And this is what it's going to look like. We're going to talk about being laid off, about the emotional component, how to make sure you're set up with your money and your health, getting yourself set up for a successful job search, leveraging your social and professional networks, why it's important to maintain structure and routine, how to conquer the job search journey without letting it conquer you, and then when you're starting to get back out there, some tools for that part of the journey. Oh, and at the end, I'm going to leave a little bit of time for questions, and if anyone in the audience has a tip they'd like to share about how they recovered from their own layoff. So there's a couple different ways you can experience a layoff. One is with some advance notice. Your company is making some changes. They've decided that they're going to trim down a department or move jobs around, and as a result, in the near future, your job will end. And that could be next week, it could be next month, it could be next year. The point is that your job will end sometime soon, and you've got to deal with that. This presents a couple different challenges because you might have to keep working until the end date while you're thinking about also trying to find your next job. Sometimes companies will give you incentives to stay on till the end date, sometimes they won't. It's still difficult to manage a full-time job and do everything you're supposed to be doing while looking for a job. Another way you might get laid off is without warning. So you walk into work one day, all of a sudden you find yourself in a meeting with HR, and you're learning that the company finances weren't that good this year, or they're taking the company and moving into Alabama, but they're not taking you with them. In this case, you're packing your desk before lunchtime and you're out the door. Both of these situations are hard. They are stressful. They're upsetting. We identify ourselves with our work, right? We go to work every day. We're productive. We have work relationships. We have work friendships. We feel a sense of accomplishment when we leave work every day. And all of a sudden, having that stripped away, it can be really traumatic. And it can be hard to recover from. So my pro tip here is, they have that saying, you get what you want on the way in and the way out. If you're on the way out, you might have some room to negotiate that layoff package. So maybe there's some, maybe you're relying on the tuition reimbursement to take a class, or you could use a couple extra months on the health insurance policy, or maybe there was PTO that you couldn't take last year because you were so busy working so hard for this company. The point is here, doesn't hurt to ask. Negotiate if you can. And then the next step, which I think is almost the most important step in dealing with a layoff, and it's processing your emotions. So you've just lost your job, and it's upsetting, sad, it's traumatic. It's like a death. It's the death of your job. And just like the death of a person, there's a lot that gets filtered through here. So you might feel sad, you might feel angry, you're not going to see your work friends anymore, you don't really know what to do with yourself. So it's important to give yourself some time to work through those emotions, process what you're feeling. I find, for me, I have used a 2-week deadline. I've given myself 2 weeks and I've said, that's what you get. 2 weeks to work through the emotions, work through the feelings, make sure you're getting your head straight about what just happened, and really just give myself that time to absorb. And the reason I think it's important to give yourself the time is your natural instinct is going to be, oh, I want to get back out there. I want to start looking for my next job. I want to start interviewing. I want to get right back out there. But if you haven't given yourself time to accept and absorb what happened, you might find yourself not really ready. And you might find yourself a little bitter, and you might find yourself just not quite positioned in the best way to find your next job yet. So my pro tip here is, if you've just been laid off, don't call your mother. She's just going to get upset because you're upset, and then she's going to call you every day, and she's going to ask you if you have a job yet. No matter how you choose to let the news out, do it in your own time, and do it when you feel like it's time, and to people that you feel are going to be supportive. I want to say one other thing about the deadline. It's important for you to set your own deadline. Mine is 2 weeks. Some people might feel 3 days is enough, or some people might say, you know what, 3 weeks is good. Taking more time than maybe is necessary under your own deadline, I wouldn't advise taking the summer off. I wouldn't advise taking the year off, no matter how cushy that severance package is. It can be really hard to get back into the groove of job searching, and the job market changes a lot, and it changes often. And if you take too much time, you might lose some of that momentum. So whatever right deadline is for you, take it. Don't take too much time. So the next really important step is to make sure you understand what the financial situation is. Are they giving you a severance package? Are you going to be eligible for unemployment? And in some states, you can actually collect unemployment while you have a severance package. You have to check that out in your own state. But the point is, you want to make sure you exactly know what's going on, and start that process soon. Filing for unemployment takes a little bit of time. There's a processing time period, and then it takes a while for the money to start coming in. So you don't want to waste any time in getting that paperwork underway. And you also want to understand what's happening with your health insurance. So is the company giving you health insurance for a period of time? Are you going to be eligible to collect COBRA, or will you have to buy it yourself? Make sure you understand exactly what is going on in that situation. And make sure you have a contact back at the company that you just left, who's your point person for any questions, somebody in HR or somebody in the benefits group that can help you navigate the world now after your job. And then facing your numbers, so sitting down, understanding the money. What do I have coming in? Do I have severance? Do I have unemployment? What's in the bank? Do I have something in my savings, my checking account? And then what's going out? What's my budget? What do I have to deal with for mortgage or rent, car payment or public transportation, the utilities, food? What's my whole financial picture look like? And how am I going to match that up? If you remove the cloud of mystery around your finances and you get yourself in a place where you understand what you have and how you're going to deal with money, because you're not going to have a salary pretty soon, that'll be really helpful, and it'll be less stressful as you move through your job search. So my pro tip here is don't delay. These steps take some time. There's a lot of paperwork involved. This one should go right away after a layoff. And then you want to set yourself up for success. So now you want to set the ground rules and a good platform for your job search. What's the first thing you need to do? Get a kick-ass resume. So your resume is still your professional calling card. It's the thing that opens the doors to whatever opportunities are going to come down the pike. And it's important that this really represents the very best you. And it can take some time. You want to do as much as you can to capture all the ins and outs of the job that you just left, all of your accomplishments, all of your skills, everything that that was about that job. You want to make sure you have everything captured on your resume. But you want to maybe take a look at some of your other positions too and tweak those. Make this resume the very best it can be with all of your accomplishments, all of your successes, everything that you have done. If you need an external opinion, because sometimes it can be hard, you're doing this sort of in a vacuum, I think it's really helpful to reach out to a friend or a colleague who's critical, and I mean critical in a good way, but somebody who will really take a hard look at the words on that resume and the content that you have in there, and will say, you know what, this could change, or this could change, or you're not talking about yourself as strongly as you could, and really give you good feedback to help make it even better. Don't give it to somebody who's going to say, oh, it looks great. You need somebody who's going to really tell you the truth. And if you have trouble putting words down on paper or describing your accomplishments, because that can be a little tricky too to talk about ourselves, I have often used a resume writing service, and that can be really useful for a couple different reasons. It's an objective third party who can help you bring out all of your accomplishments and help put that down on paper. And also because if you're stuck and this is becoming a hurdle for you to get that resume done, they can help move you forward there. Now, there's a cost usually for resume writing services, but it can be worth it, especially if it helps move you forward. And my pro tip here is, if your company that's just laid you off, if they're offering any sort of outplacement, take it. This can also include resume writing help. It can include career coaching if you're not sure what you want to do next. It can include a workspace if you just want a place to do work in a different environment than your own house. And it can be helpful to have all of these resources. So if your company's offering outplacement, it can be a good idea to take it. So I'm going to talk about your social and professional network, and I'm going to focus on LinkedIn. You've just finished your resume, right? It's this beautiful, shiny, new, wonderful thing that talks about your accomplishments. It's a wonderful document that you're going to use as you move through your job search. You want to take that information and move it into your LinkedIn profile. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is as wonderful as it can be also. But you have a little more flexibility with LinkedIn, and you can do other stuff that might not be able to fit in your resume. You can add links to work that you can talk about, or pictures, or some kind of article that you might have written. You can add all of that into your LinkedIn to make it really even more robust. And so it gives you a little more flexibility to have more content about yourself than your resume might. So it's a good idea to kind of bolster this up. And if you're not sure how to make your profile even more interesting and better, look at what other people are doing. See what they're doing and see if any of those ideas might work for you too. If you don't have a good profile photo on your LinkedIn, now's the time. So if you got that photo where you cut the person out over here, it's time to retire that one. And I don't mean that you have to go out to a professional photographer and get a photo. Just have a good photo taken. Have your friend take a photo that represents you as you look today. You might ask some of your colleagues at the job you just left for endorsements. And this is also important, and it's a great feature of LinkedIn because it lets people see or read what it's like to work with you. What were you like as an employee? What were you like as a colleague? So having a personal endorsement is a really useful thing to have in your LinkedIn. And again, because it's all fresh in people's minds, it's a good idea to get these requests out there sooner rather than later while people are still remembering what it was like to work together. And you have to kind of go through the endorsement process. You ask someone to endorse you formally through LinkedIn, and then they have to submit it, and then you have to approve it. So there's a couple steps there. And then I'm talking about LinkedIn because I think it's a really important networking tool and a networking resource. But you can use, if Twitter is a better network for you, then that's a better one for you. Then you should go ahead and use that. Or if there's another social media platform that you're more comfortable with and you have a strong network, whatever the case is, manage your channels. Make sure that everything you're putting out there is something that you'd be proud of saying about yourself. Recruiters, hiring managers, they're going to look. They're going to look at everything. They're going to Google you. They're going to see what's out there. And you want to make sure that, the keg stand photos aren't still up there, or you're not, maybe got some postings that you might not be so proud of. So if you're not sure what's out there about yourself, Google yourself and see, because hiring managers will do it, recruiters will do it, and it can make the difference between getting a job and not. I think that lists are important to help frame out what you're going to do in your job search. And the lists are twofold. The first one is make a list of everyone you know. This is people, your former colleagues at your job that you just left, old bosses, maybe former colleagues from jobs that you've been at before, people you went to college with, your yoga teacher, your softball buddies, your kid's soccer coach. Be extensive in this networking list. And the reason is because you never know who knows who. And you might be surprised at who your yoga teacher knows. And it can also really help you figure out when you are networking who's connected to who. So if you get a really robust, comprehensive list and make it as thorough as possible right off the bat. And then you might do the same thing for companies. So if you're interested, if you've always thought about this company and they do some cool stuff and you might like to work there someday, start writing down companies that you might be interested in finding out more about. These lists are great because they're going to help give you a roadmap for what you're going to start doing as you're moving through your job search. But you also want to keep them handy because invariably, and whatever the tool is that you want to use, if it's on your phone or you want to use a notebook, you just have them in a place where they're always with you and always accessible. Because invariably, you will be standing in line for coffee, or you'll be at the gym, or you'll be in the checkout line at the grocery, and you'll run into somebody and they'll say, oh, I know this guy over at this company, and you've got to go talk to him about this job, and you'll need a place to capture that information and to be able to follow up on it. So however you want to keep that list handy, but just make sure you have it in a place that you can get to it all the time. So you also need what I like to call a party line. And a party line is how you talk about what just happened. It's hard. You don't have your job anymore, and it's a hard thing to talk about. It's a good idea to practice it. So I'll tell you a story about what happened to me once. Right after I'd been laid off, I was at a barbecue, and course of normal conversation, somebody said to me, so what do you do? I had no words, nothing. All I said was nothing. I do nothing. Don't let this happen to you. So you want to have what I call the party line, and it's a sentence or two about what happened to your job. And it can be really simple. The company finances weren't great. My job was eliminated. Boom. End of story. Or they had some changes in the structure and 25 of us were let go. Boom. End of story. Doesn't have to be long. It just has to be simple, straightforward, and you want to practice saying it so it feels natural to you, so it feels like this is something that you really believe. Now, of course, what you want to say is, the company was a disaster. They couldn't manage their way out of a paper bag, but you can't say that, right? So you have to keep it professional, you have to keep it upbeat and simple. And once you say this to people once, they'll move right on. They don't need to hear it over and over again. And they're going to move right on to the next question, which is, what do you want to do next? So you have to be ready for that one too. The structure that you want to set up for yourself during your job search is, I think, really important because it helps frame out your days. So you just have gone from having your days pretty structured, right? Getting up, going to work, working, going to meetings all day, and coming home. And now all of a sudden, you don't have any of that. Your days sort of yawn there out in front of you, and before you know it, it's 3 o'clock and you're watching Ellen and you haven't gotten anything done, right? So you want to kind of understand what structure will work best for you. And it might be you get up and go to the gym first thing, and then you come home and you hit the job search. Or you might like to volunteer a couple mornings a week at the local animal shelter, and then you come home and you hit your job search. Whatever the right formula is for you, get a structure together and try to stick with it because it'll help you get through all of the stuff you need to get through with your job search and also do some things for yourself at the same time. You know, and volunteering can be networking too, because if you are volunteering, you'll find yourself interacting with people you might never otherwise meet. These are folks from all different industries who might be volunteering at this company, and you'll just get an additional kind of exposure to people that you might not normally meet. So volunteering can be networking, and as a side note, the last time I did a huge volunteer project, I ended up finding my next job, just completely unrelated. But so you never know what's going to happen. I want to share with you what my friend Jackie does. So when Jackie has been laid off, she has a formula, and it's pretty rigid, but it works for Jackie. So she gives herself 4 hours a day, and during those 4 hours, that's her job search time, and she does at least 10 job search activities. So that could be sending resumes, making networking appointments or coffee dates or lunch meetings, phone conversations, researching the companies, finding out more, sending more resumes, applying to job postings. 10 job search activities in 4 hours. That's what has to be done for Jackie every day. And then if she has a phone meeting or a phone interview, that will take 2 of the hours, and then the other 2 she'll go back to her job search activities. And then if she has a in-person interview, that'll supersede all the activities. And she'll spend her time preparing and getting ready for the interview, having the interview, and then the next day after the interview, right back to the 4 hours, 10 activities. So her formula is pretty rigid, but it works for her because she really feels like she needs that structure around her job search. You should find your own structure, figure out what works for you, but it does help keep the negativity at bay to have that structure around what you're doing, and it'll make you feel more productive too. So now you're going to go back to that people list. So you've made your list of all the people you know, and you're going to start plowing through it, calling folks, emailing, making appointments to get together. Can you spend 15 minutes on the phone? Could you have a coffee? Could you get lunch? People naturally, I think, want to help, and so I think, especially if it's folks you'll have a good result when you reach out to folks. But you should also be mindful that you want to make the most of their time. So be prepared for these meetings. Have a set of questions that you want to ask, and you'll probably spend a little bit of time catching up if it's folks you haven't seen or talked to in a long time. But also make sure you're making the most of your time and not wasting theirs. So maybe you're going to ask them about their company or how long they've been there, or whether or not they know of anyone that's hiring someone like you. Make sure you have some of that stuff ready to go so that you're getting the most out of these networking meetings and they are not wasting their time too. And go back to your cool companies list and start researching them. Find out if these companies that you're interested in, who's hiring. If there's a job you're interested in, go back to your LinkedIn. See if someone you know works there. Reach out to them, or maybe they have a friend that works there, and maybe they can help pass your resume on to the hiring manager. These steps take a little bit of time, so you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the time to do all this. Meetups and events can be a really good way to also network. There could be networking types of meetups, there can be industry types of meetups, there can be networking events. Find them. You have time to research this now. You have time on your hands, so find them and go to them. Networking isn't easy for everybody, and especially in person. It can be hard to introduce yourself to people that you don't know, and some people just can't stand it. But if you're in this position and you're looking for your next job, you have to get over this. And maybe there's a way you can do this if you just give yourself a challenge. Challenge yourself to go to one of these networking events or these meetups and just meet one person. And use your list. Use your list you're using with all your other networking folks. Just introduce yourself to one person, ask about their job, where they work, or what they're doing, talk a little bit about yourself. And if that goes okay, maybe meet 2. And so all of a sudden, you're doing this. You're networking. It's happening. And now you're starting to fill the pipeline. So you're getting some momentum. You've got your shiny new resume, you got your awesome LinkedIn profile, you got your networking list, you're pushing stuff out there, people, you have meetings, things are happening. You're filling the pipeline with good stuff and you're building momentum around your job search. This is wonderful. This is great. It can also start to become really overwhelming. And how do you keep it all organized? Well, if you're collecting unemployment, they might require that you keep a list of all your job search activities. You figure out what works for you. I use a spreadsheet, and I write every single thing onto that spreadsheet. If I called somebody to make a networking meeting, if I sent a resume, if I researched a company, and I put every single thing down on there, and then I put what are the next steps from that thing. If I had that phone conversation and we agreed to talk again in 2 weeks, what's the date I need to call that person back? Or if I sent the resume and I didn't hear anything, when am I going to follow up? Make sure you have an outline of what you've done, where you left things, and what your next steps are. You're going to start going back to this a lot, and at first you won't think you need it, but then once you have a pretty extensive list on there, it's going to be really helpful, and it's going to act like your roadmap for what you need to do during your job search. Go back to your list. So staying organized is really important, and once this momentum starts to build, stuff's going to start to come in your way, right? You're sending a bunch of stuff out, and then recruiters are going to see that you're interested in opportunities. They're going to start reaching out to you. Maybe you've registered with a couple job boards and you've got job alerts that are coming. Maybe they're coming every day. A lot of stuff can start coming in that can really be a little bit overwhelming and can also be a little bit distracting. I mean, the other day I got an email from LinkedIn, 55 new jobs for you. And oh my God, 55 new jobs. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can end up spending time looking at. Make sure you're carving out time appropriately. This stuff can be distracting, the incoming, and you also have the important work of networking and your research to be doing too. So carve out your time so that you're making sure you're spending it equally across all things and not just responding to the easy stuff, which is really the emails and the job postings. So my pro tip here is all of this stuff that you're doing, this is networking. And this is your new job. I call this conquering the job search journey. It is a journey. You don't know really when it's going to end right away. And it can have its ups and downs. The emotional part is a little bit tricky, getting your resume together, so you're on a bit of a journey. One day, you're going to wake up and maybe you've been busy the week before and you've had tons of stuff going on. You had meetings, you were running from phone call to phone call and all sorts of activity. And then you wake up one day and you have nothing on the calendar that day. And you don't have anything on the calendar tomorrow or for the rest of the week. And this is when things start to suck. And you need to know how to deal with when things start to suck, because it's depressing. Go back to your lists. Did you follow up with that guy that you guys talked a couple weeks ago? Or what happened to that resume that went into that job posting that your friend told you about? Go back to your list, start following up. Do the same with your cool companies. Make sure you're researching everything you want to know about those companies and add more companies. If you need some inspiration, open the newspaper, read a business section. Oftentimes they write about companies in your area, interesting things they're doing. Maybe you didn't even know that company existed. I live in Boston, and we have something called the Boston Business Journal. I don't know if you guys have the journals in your area, but they have an annual publication called the Book of Lists, which is a really comprehensive listing of every single company in the greater Boston area. And it's great for inspiration, paging through that, like finding, oh, I forgot that company was even here, or I didn't even know this company was here. It can be a great place to get some inspiration about companies in your area that you might not have even realized were there. So some of these things require a subscription. And if you're laid off, you might not have a lot of spare money. So check out the library. The library might have these on hand for folks to look at. So it can also be a nice place to kind of get out of the house sometimes when you're on the job search. So hit the library and see what they have. job searching can be a lonely endeavor. If you are looking for a job, everyone else goes off to work every day or school, and you're kind of slogging away at it, kind of fighting the good fight, trying to figure out what you're going to be doing next. It can be lonely, and you can really start to feel a little isolated. It's a good idea to get a team together, and the team could be people that you know that are going through the same thing, whether they've been laid off or they're just looking for a new job, or people maybe that were part of your old company. Maybe there were a few of you who were laid off. Get some folks together, have meetings, talk about what each of you are doing in your job search. Maybe there's some tips that they could share with you, or some ideas that you've had that you could share with them. You guys can brainstorm. It doesn't even matter if you're in the same industry or in the same age group. Different perspectives are really helpful. And you can walk away from these meetings feeling like you have some new things to follow up on, new things to get inspired about. There are very few times in your life where you will have complete control over your days. So you're in charge. When you're laid off, you are in charge of your own days. And while it can be really tempting to spend all day, doing all of your job search activities and worrying about when you're going to get your next job, we don't really need to do that anymore. Everything is digital. You can find, you have your phone with you wherever you are. You're connected. So give yourself a break and take advantage of the freedom. Make sure you spend some time doing things that are for you. Maybe you want to visit with family or see a friend that you haven't seen in a long time. Maybe you've got a high school friend that just had a baby, is stuck in the house and would love some company. Or you want to take a class, or you want to travel around, or you want to go to a conference. Do those things. Do those things for yourself. Maybe you have a project in the house that you want to take advantage of the time and spend time doing. I know that when I have been laid off, my closets have never been so clean. They are squeaky clean and organized. So don't not feed the soul during this time. Do things that make you feel good, because if you do that, it'll help you be more relaxed for what's coming next. If you do have any of these activities that you think would be useful to add to your professional experience, maybe you took a class or you went to a conference or you learned a new skill, put it on your resume. In your LinkedIn, folks will want to see that you're adding stuff. Recruiters especially, they want to know that you're not paralyzed by your job search and you're out there doing stuff. So now you're going to get back out there. Things are going to start happening, right? The momentum is building, your resume is out there, people are going to start contacting you, and you're going to start getting requests for interviews, and they're probably going to fall in a couple different categories. So one way that you might get an interview is it's a phone screen. And a phone screen is usually between you and someone from HR to gauge at a very high level, is there a good fit? Or is there a synergy between you and the company? And you want to prepare for these phone screens just like you would any other interview. You want to make sure you have all your questions outlined about the company, you've done your research. You want to make sure you have all your accomplishments ready to talk about. But how do you get across the real you? It's just over the phone, right? There's no facial recognition, there's no body language, it's just the voice, your voice, their voice. So I like to do a couple things when I'm doing a phone interview, and I like to stand up. So I don't sit on the couch, I don't lie in the bed, I stand up, I use a power pose. I'm on the phone, I'm talking, I'm walking around, I'm not sitting down, and I am energized when I'm doing this. I have more energy in my voice, I have more energy in the way I talk, and I feel good about myself when I'm in this power pose. And then if I'm smiling, which makes my voice have a positive intonation, so I'm smiling, I'm talking, I'm walking. I might even do it in front of a mirror so that I make sure I continue to smile and talk and walk. So I like to use that power pose. I think it helps get your true self across over the phone. And then you might also get a meeting request from a company to do a Skype interview. So this presents another set of challenges because now you have to figure out what to wear. And you have to figure out where in your house to do this. And, is the background like that messy bookshelf? You can't do that. Or old posters on the walls, you can't do that. So you need to figure out the environment. Where is it that you've got kind of a neutral background, you won't have a lot of distractions around, people won't be walking around distracting you, distracting the person you're interviewing with. So that can present another set of challenges, and you have to be careful when you're doing that. You might even do a mock Skype interview with a friend or a meeting with a friend to see, does this background look okay? Is my outfit okay from the waist up? So that can be a good idea to practice. And then you're going to get out there in person. So all of this activity is really going to start to result in in-person interviews. And just like all these other interviews that we've been talking about, you want to make sure you're prepared with your questions, you've done your research, you're ready to talk about your accomplishments, you got your party line all organized, everything's good to go, but now you have to figure out what to wear. And it can be really hard because today's work environments are so casual. What's right? You don't want to show up in a three-piece suit and look like a complete dork. If everyone in the office is wearing shorts and flip-flops, it is a good idea to understand what the dress code is in the place that you're going to, and then take your outfit a notch or two above. And you can ask the person setting up your interview, what do they wear in the office? Ask them what the dress code is, what folks are usually wearing, and then make sure you're one step or two above that. And that could be, collared shirt and a nice jacket, or your best pair of pants, or a nice dress with a sweater. Whatever it is, you'll feel better if you're dressed up a little bit, and also you'll make the best first impression. And the first impression is still worth a lot. I have friends in HR who tell me horror stories about the outfits that people wear when they come in for interviews. And if you think that yoga pants or jeans are okay for your interview, you won't be surprised then when they don't call you back for the second one. So dress to impress. It is still important. I'm going to talk a minute about bad interviewers. So I wish I could tell you that there was a school of interviewing technique and people went to it and they are all wonderful, but they are not. There are some good ones, and those great interviewers are people that really understand how to ask the best questions, how to tell you what the job requirements are, how to get a really balanced look for you and for them at whether or not you guys are a good fit. Those are the good guys. And then you'll have the bad ones, and they drone on and on about the job or the company or themselves, and you can't get a word in edgewise, and you're thinking, I'm wasting my time here. I'm interested in this job, but this person just isn't getting anything out of me. How will they even know what I have to offer? So you have to be able to deal with this because they're out there. These people are going to ask you questions like, what's the best book you ever read? And it doesn't matter. That's not a good question. So one way that you can kind of help deflect and divert the conversation is if you have a list of your accomplishments ready to talk about, you can ask them, hey, I know your time is valuable. I want to make sure we're making the most of this meeting. Would you mind if I asked a few questions? And then you can turn your accomplishments into questions. So you can say something like, I have really strong project management skills. How do you think that'll come into play in this position? And then divert the conversation from that stream that they were on into these things that you want to make sure you get across about yourself. My pro tip here is if you're getting ready to go out there and interview, make sure you are comfortable with your outfit, but also get some other people's opinions. Take a selfie, send it to a couple friends, ask them, do you think this is okay for my meeting? So here's my summary of all the pro tips. You want to negotiate on the way out, just like you did on the way in. Don't call your mother, get her all worried until you're ready. Don't delay getting your health and wealth set. Make sure you understand what the health insurance situation is, your budget. If there's outplacement offered, take it. Google yourself, make sure your social media profiles are what you're proud of. And then practice that party line. Make sure you've got that all organized and it feels natural. Understand that networking is your new job. This is what you're going to be doing every day. Add your activities to LinkedIn and to your resume, especially if you think that could help bolster up your experience. And dress to impress. Take a selfie of your interview outfit. Make sure it's ready to go. So my question is for everybody here, Are you ready? Did you know today's job worker, today all of us workers, their average tenure at any company is 3 to 4 years. So the days of people staying at companies for 10, 20, 30 years, our parents, our grandparents' generation, those are gone. Average tenure, 3 to 4 years. And that might be you deciding to make a move or someone deciding to make a move for you. So all of us should have our LinkedIn profile and our resumes up to date. Make sure you are doing this just like you would go to the gym to keep your physical self in shape. We all need to keep our professional selves in shape too. So make sure your resume is updated. Make sure you have a rockin' LinkedIn profile. Get some lists together. Why wait until you've been laid off to make your networking list? Start it now. Have it ready. It doesn't hurt to have that going already. You might even get to know some recruiters in your industry or in the industry you might be interested in investigating more, or you might be interested in working at someday. And then dress to impress. Have a couple interview outfits ready. Try everything on. Make sure it still fits. You know, if it needs to go to the dry cleaner, get that done. Because what if somebody calls and says, hey, we've got a great job. I know you weren't looking, but we've got a great job for you, and we want you in here this week. So you don't want to have to scurry around and find that right thing to wear. Have a couple interview outfits at the ready. So that is what I have to share with you today. And so I'm thankful that you all came here to listen. And I also have some time now for questions, or if anyone wants to share a tip on their own recovery strategy for being laid off, we can do that now. Go to Mike.
So you talked about the steps that you should take to keep your job search going. What about like recruiting, like headhunters or job searches? What tips do you have for that?
If you want to work with a headhunter, is that what the question is?
Yes.
Yes. So I think just like you have your list of your networking folks, reach out to headhunters. Definitely have them working on your behalf also. You've got to get that resume ready first, right? Because they're going to be the ones who can help you spread that out further. You have to, I like to use headhunters. I have a network of folks that I use actually that I've kept in touch with over the years. I think it's really useful to have those relationships and to use them when you are doing your job search. But even when you're not, I still keep in touch with them because sometimes they're looking for people and I can help connect them. And then when I'm looking, they can help me. So it's almost like your network where you want to stay in touch with folks. I think headhunters can be really useful. And I'm talking about the kind that are working for themselves, not necessarily that you're going to pay. Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Along those lines with the headhunters, how often should you be touching base with them? Every 3 weeks, once a month? What would be a good...
Excellent question. How often should you touch base with the headhunters? So I find that you can often need to keep reminding them that you are still looking, because if they don't hear from you, they think, oh, well, maybe she found a job, maybe he found a job. So I use an every month time frame. I think that's kind of, then I'm not bugging them, and if they have something before then, they call me.
Is it better to just leave a voicemail or send an email?
I think that depends. Yeah, and I think that depends on your relationships. If you're already set up sort of an email protocol and you guys are comfortable communicating that way, I've known my network of headhunters for almost 10 years, and so I tend to pick up the phone myself. But I think as long as you have a relationship built, if you don't hear back, I'd pick up the phone.
Hi.
Hi.
Today's employers are probably more accessible than ever through various social media platforms. Do you have any thoughts about the boundaries of reaching out to them on LinkedIn versus hitting them up on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
Right. Excellent question about the boundaries of social media and how do you reach out to employers. I would say if they have put themselves on LinkedIn, then they are sort of opening themselves up to being contacted. What can happen, and with all of this, and what can be frustrating, is you're going to send a lot of stuff out there and you don't always hear back. And that can be frustrating and it can be sort of rude. So I like to think that if someone is really interested and they want to hear from you, and you reach out to them on LinkedIn or Twitter or however else you do, then they are going to respond. If they don't, then you have to wonder, geez, why are they out there? And also, are they really looking for someone? If they've got a job posted and they're not responding to people who are interested and have, so you have to measure your how you feel about it. If it's someone you know very well, or if it's someone that's a completely new contact, you might start off with LinkedIn, and then if nothing happens, you might think about whether or not there's someone else at that company you want to reach out to. But I would say be as aggressive as possible. What do you have to lose? Do we have any other questions, or anyone want to share a tip?
Do you have any specific nuanced guidance for folks in their 50s that have been recently laid off?
I say that folks in their 50s are the most experienced people that we have in the workforce today. You have so much to offer, and I think it can feel a little overwhelming because I think we do hear about ageism and discrimination from companies. But I say all of these things are the same for if you're 20 or if you're 50. You have to do all the same stuff. And the great news is you probably have a bigger networking list than the 20-something-year-old crowd, right? So I would say that using the same tips and really finding other people maybe that are in your same boat and what kind of techniques they're using to navigate their world here and find their next job. Thank you guys for coming. Oh, yes, another one. Okay, good.
Sorry, just to add some tips.
Yes.
You were spot on with asking, what should my attire be for the interview? I'm coming in for the interview. What should I wear? As a former hiring manager, one thing that will sink your ship faster than anything else if you just totally come unprepared. If you're not dressed for the role, if you don't know who the CEO of that company is, if you don't know what the product line of the company, research, and practice answering those questions. If you were interviewing that person for that job, what questions would you ask? And write those questions down, print them out, take them with you in your portfolio packet. Come with a packet, print your resume out, because not every interviewer in that room is going to have your resume, or worse, they may have an outdated resume that came in through the
Job
through
boards
the
or
website.
something. Yep. Awesome tips. Awesome tips. You know what else you're reminding me is that practice, right? So practice some of your questions, and also practice some of your answers to common interview questions. Why do you want to work for this company? What accomplishments do you have that you could relate to this job? Practice those with yourself or maybe with a friend. And I think being prepared, your point is excellent. Even though folks should have your resume, they don't always have it. Make sure you have a printed copy, have it all ready and ready to go. Thank you for sharing that. That was great.
How do you position yourself for an opportunity that maybe you often say that the recruiter comes back and says you're overqualified for, the hiring manager?
That's an excellent question about whether or not how you're trying to position yourself for a position that they say you're overqualified for. I think, and that can be really, really difficult because, why are they saying that? Are they saying that because they wrote the job description wrong? So I guess delving in a little deeper with them to find out specifically, why do you feel I'm overqualified? Of course, you don't want a job that you're overqualified for, but is there a way that this could be could this actually be mitigated somehow? Could my experience actually help make this a position at a higher level even? So I guess what I would suggest is really, if you have a good relationship with that hiring manager or that recruiter, delve in. Find out exactly what aspects they feel you are overqualified for. Is there any potential that job could change into something different, either right now or maybe after you got there? Because I think every company wants their people to succeed, but they certainly don't want someone that comes into a job that will get bored easily. So I think that's the danger that they're trying to, to prevent, is that you're going to get in there and you're going to find out that, this doesn't really float your boat because it's, too junior for you, and then you're just going to leave and they're going to have to do the whole thing all over again. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming, and I hope that you all have successful job searches in their future. Thank you.